In this video, we share with you how to combat menopause and finally lose stubborn weight with no one better than Susan Niebergall to explain exactly how to do it.
I feel like it is much harder to lose weight in menopause. It's really stubborn, but I also find
this is not a typical YouTube video from us, and in fact, this is from a podcast episode we had with Susan a while back.
This whole eating more thing made absolutely no sense to me.
This was our most downloaded podcast episode and something that we get asked all the time in our Facebook community and on Instagram, and so we wanted to bring it here and have it live on our YouTube channel for you.
I was just one of those, that believed all the gimmicks from decades, it's fat that's making you fat. It's carbs that's making you fat.
In this video, you'll hear Susan share her journey on being a teacher and struggling to lose the same 10 to 30 pounds for decades, and how she finally found freedom from dieting in her mid-50s by eating more and working out less. Susan shares how when she surrounded herself with the right people, program, and mindset, everything changed. Let's dive into the video and I'll check back in with you at the end.
Susan has been a guest inside of our Facebook community, our calorie cycling community, a couple of times now. And when we did ask our community, who do you guys want us to have on the podcast, like as a guest, one of the first people they were like, bring back Susan. So we're very excited to have Susan back with us today. Susan, do you want to give a little bit of a background of like you and who you are? I know you recently came out with a book and you have your inner circle and things like that. So give us a quick like down and dirty about you.
Sure. Well, first of all, you guys, thank you for having me on here. And the fact that somebody requested me, I'm so flattered. So thank anybody that said that. So I am a retired school educator that struggled with her weight for decades, really. Yo-yo dieted. Did the whole Jenny Craig thing, where you just eat their food and of course you don't learn anything, couldn't keep it off. Yo-yoed 10, 20, 30 pounds for the rest of my life, probably up until my mid 50s. I'm currently 62. So I'm coming up on a 10-year mark, which is pretty incredible, to be honest. And I was just one of those, that believed all the gimmicks from decades, it's fat that's making you fat. It's carbs that's making you fat. You need to exercise, hard 7 days a week in order to maintain anything or make any progress. And I fell for all of that, did all of that. And of course, because of that, I never really made any true sustainable progress. The only way I knew how to lose weight is by not eating, and literally not eating much at all, and of course, we all know that's obviously not the best way to do it. And it won't stay off. And of course, that's what happened. But it wasn't until like I got into my 50s, menopause was hitting me. And I feel like I gained belly fat overnight, just like what I hear most middle-aged women say. I think it's pretty common to look down at yourself and just go, oh my God.
What happened, right?
What is that?
Yeah.
And when you're a fitness professional at the same time, you're kind of like, oh man, that like hit me like a ton of bricks. So I started trying to rationalize why this is happening. And I came up with, it was menopause. It was menopause's fault. I was the victim. My metabolism was the issue. So I was just going to go to the doctor, get checked out, get my little medication, have my metabolism be revved right back up, and off I would go. And I did the doctor part, but the rest of it wasn't kind of what happened. I mean, she came back and just said, no, your metabolism markers, everything is fine. You're in a normal range. There's nothing really wrong. And really, there rarely is for the vast majority of people, right? But we all want that because we think that's the easy fix for everything.
Because it's not you, right? You can like blame it on something else.
Right. It's easy, right? To blame someone else, which I did. Something else. And now I couldn't anymore. Like I had to face, okay, I have to look at what I was doing, or more accurately, what I wasn't doing. And that took a little while to accept. But once I did, okay, and I started making a few small changes. And around that time is when I hired Jordan as my coach. And so I put all this stuff together and read all of his stuff, watched all of his stuff, and started implementing what he wanted me to implement as a coach. And everything started to change. And the one thing too, that I never really even owned a scale at that point. So I really didn't know the weight numbers. But everything started to change, like how I looked, how my clothes fit, all of those other markers that are so important, not just the scale. I mean, it wasn't until about 4 years ago that I actually even owned a scale.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still new, I guess, in the scale world or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, put it all the pieces of the puzzle together, and have been ever since. And that has struck me over the years as, I'm no one special here. I don't have gifts of, being athletic or great genetics in my family. I have just the opposite, actually. And I guess I want to be kind of blazing a trail or setting an example for people that, you can do it too. And it's not too late. If I can do it in my mid 50s, anybody can do this. And so that's why I wrote the book. Fit at any age, it's never too late. It's just a story of basically the first part of it's just all the mistakes I made. And it's interesting because the overwhelming response I get to the book is, this could have been me, and it could have been any of us, because we all did that same stupid stuff, but I guess the overarching message there is that despite how many dumb things we did, it's never too late to turn it all around, and that it's more than possible. And in my book, I just kind of go on about how I did it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you have absolutely blazed that trail for women who are in their 50s and older. And it's something that, we hear all the time from women who are at that age where it is just kind of like, they're almost hoping, like you said, that it's something, external that's wrong. And it's not actually them that is the issue, why they are where they are and they can't lose weight. And I think being in your 50s, and you kind of mentioned that you tried everything and like nothing was working and you were almost kind of starving yourself and just not eating. And for us, like when we talk to women who are in their 50s and they've had that similar, dieting background where they have tried everything and nothing works. And then, they kind of come over to us and like, we're telling them you need to eat more and fuel your metabolism and you don't need to starve yourself and you don't need to restrict. And they're so hesitant because everything that they've ever been told their entire lives. And I mean, you think that's like 30, 40 years of like hearing the same message from the diet industry. And I'm sure it was the same for you. When you found Jordan and when Jordan was starting to give you that same protocol of like, eat more, like strength train, what were your initial thoughts? Because I know it kind of like jumps from, you struggled and then you found Jordan and then like everything kind of took off from there. But was it hard for you to make that transition? Was it hard for you to start eating more and almost trust that process? Or did you just jump in, feet first?
It was really hard. And actually before Jordan, I started making real small, negligible changes. I don't want to say negligible, but just being more aware of what I was eating. I still wasn't tracking or anything. And I started to see some results from that, worked with in-person trainers and stuff, and was being completely overtrained during that time, as I would discover later. But when I got with Jordan, we didn't start with nutrition at all. We started with, because I thought I wanted to power lift at that point. But I took it upon myself to become a student and really listen to all the stuff that he put out, not just the program he sent me, but all the other stuff. I joined his inner circle right away too. So I was getting double doses of stuff kind of in different formats. And one big thing for me was I really didn't start tracking calories for a long time after that. But this whole eating more thing made absolutely no sense to me because how could that be? Because I have struggled my entire life eating nothing and virtually nothing and not being able to maintain any kind of weight loss whatsoever. It was kind of like I'm doomed to this kind of life. Right. But I have to say it was a bit of a leap of faith when I started doing the nutrition end. It wasn't like it was just like, okay, let's go. I'm ready. It was not like that at all. And he will tell you, especially from the workout perspective, when he dialed me back to 4 days a week, I was the whiniest person on the planet and, complained and where's the rest of it? And all those remarks, So it was almost for me, from the workout perspective, a detox of sorts where I was having to come off of this thing of having to work out so hard, I'm afraid that if I didn't, I wasn't going to make any progress. Again, not wanting to realize the truth in that I was making no progress, and it was kind of the same thing with nutrition. I was in denial. Your feet get dug in. I use this example a lot. When somebody is so set in their ways, their feet are dug in, and you can feel the stubbornness. You can feel that when you talk to them. I can so relate to that person because I was that person too, especially with nutrition. And I think it took a lot of, I'm trying this, I'm giving this a shot. This is never going to work. All this stuff in my head goes on and on and on, but I kept trying. And I think that's what it boils down to. I had to take a leap of faith and keep trying and not give up when the going got tough, because it got tough really fast because I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't understand it. Like I didn't understand why then could I not lose? It didn't make sense to me. I didn't have the ability to look at it and say, well, you didn't succeed because you couldn't sustain 1,200 700 calories, 800, whatever calories it was. You couldn't keep that up. You were hungry a lot, and then I was guided also from decades of thinking, well, just eat healthy, healthy fats, healthy this, da, da, da. It doesn't matter how much of that stuff you eat, just eat it,
Yeah.
And I went a lot in that direction too, thinking, well, I'm eating healthy. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. I mean, do you feel, because I love what you said about, when you started with Jordan, like you almost just became a student and you just wanted to learn and kind of soak in everything. And I feel like, looking at all of these programs in the women's diet industry, the one thing that is missing is education.
Yeah.
And the problem is that there's so much just kind of like high level information on the internet that when women are trying to search for things, it's just like, eat less carbs, eat more carbs, eat low fat, eat more fat, like don't do cardio. And it's so confusing. And I think that's where so many women get stuck because like they're trying all the things, they're spending like, a little bit of time in each thing and then just chalking it up to nothing works. Do you feel like the education side of things was helpful for you in your journey of understanding the why behind what you were being told to do?
100%. And that's why over on my YouTube channel, I try to spend more time educating on things that I didn't get, like I didn't understand. And I think it's so important. That's why I wrote my book, to show people, to break some myths that have been in our head for so long. And I think that's the overriding issue here, is that we believed all kinds of stuff for literally 30, 40 years. And if you really take a step back and think about how long that is, that's insane. And it's not something that easily goes away, and that you're going to be easily trusting of new information that's really not that new, but I mean, to us, it would be new, right? So it is a lot of almost kind of baby steps, a little bit, maybe tackling one thing at a time or whatever it is, but to have somebody to support you. And that's why, I always say Jordan changed my life, because you actually did. You have that person to support you, or a group of people to support you that will help validate the things that you're doing, that will help keep you going when the going gets tough, will give you the tough love when you needed it. And I needed a lot of that, because I was becoming a pain in the ass. There was no doubt about it. I mean, I think it's just this combo of all of that, I think, that needs to happen for people in my age bracket. And it's not easy. And I get the comment a lot from people like, you're my age, so I get, you've been through this, you understand. Yeah. But I also tell people that doesn't mean that somebody who hasn't been through it or not your age can't help you. Like, who would think a young white male half my age could help me?
Right.
I mean, so it's not just that, and I always want to put that out there, because I feel like people are getting, kind of looked over when no, they're great coaches. You guys, I mean, I'm twice your all's age, but you all know all of this just like I do. It's nothing new for any of us now, but it's just important to surround yourself with support. I feel like it's intimidating. It's intimidating to try to get online. My God, online, you know? Online, anything. I have anxiety every time I click to come on a Zoom meeting because, oh my God, is my microphone on? Is my, no one can hear me. What do I do? All of that stuff still. So I think it's just a lot of stuff, but yeah, there's not enough education for this population to relate to. And one thing I try to do is to keep my verbiage simple, keep the message simple. I think that makes people feel more comfortable to listen to you too.
Sure.
I think that's a biggie.
Yeah. I mean, education, if you're, talking with all the big words, it's going over everyone's head. Like you have to speak in layman's terms in a way that you're going to understand, right? Like everyone's going to understand because you've lived it. And that's kind of the nice part, what coming from your perspective is that this is the way that you spoke. These are the way and the terms in which you understood things. So you're able to speak to those things, just like, all the women that you help, they are understanding it in that way as well. One of the interesting things, that you said is when you started working with Jordan, he scaled your workouts way back to 4 days a week. And I'm assuming he was feeding you more and making you eat more than you usually do. And so this is a big one because it comes in direct contrast to what we are always told, whether it's by Instagram influencers or our doctors or parents or, colleagues, friends, sisters, whoever, just eat less and work out more. Like that is the one-stop shop to how you're going to lose weight. And logically, yes, we all understand it, but it's taken so out of context. So can you talk a little bit about why like that whole eat less, work out more can be so damaging?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the big thing that changed for me with that is, and I never had this before, I always used to work out to lose weight. That's why I worked out, right? The whole calorie burn, I must be burning a lot of calories. I'm sweating like crazy. And that was the first mistake. That started the whole thing. Why I worked out more, because man, if one workout's great, two must be really good, and I did the whole 2-a-day thing for a while too. And not just cardio strength.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a lot.
I mean, it's like dumb. It's just dumb. If you think about it, but I feel like it's the relationship with exercise. Like we should have two separate relationships here, one with food, one with exercise, because we are not exercising to lose weight. And that we have to look at exercise that way, because if we look at exercise as a way to lose weight, we will never do what we want to do. We will constantly overtrain. We will constantly run our bodies into the ground. And that's going to add just another layer of problems, right? We should be exercising for our health, to feel better, to move better, to build muscle, to build strength, to build bone density, all of those things, to improve our heart. We need to do all of that and that's why we exercise, right? But when he scaled me back to 4 days, I was not thinking in that way. I was thinking of, oh my God, I'm going to gain fat now. Regardless of what we do with food, I'm going to gain fat. And I was panicked. And that's why I was whiny about everything. And he finally acquiesced and said, okay, on your rest day, you can go get on a bike. And basically the heart rate goal he gave me was lower than, it was barely zone 2. I mean, it was probably zone 1 plus, I mean, it was
just sit on the bike.
Yeah. So I'm like kind of on the bike and, boredom kicks in within about 30 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to do this again, and back then, and granted, this was 8 years ago now, maybe something like that. He wanted me to legitimately not do much of anything on a rest day. Now we talk more about being more active rest and things. But for me back then, it was more like, it's not sit on the couch kind of rest, but it was like, he didn't want me to think about exercise and I have to do it. And I understand why now. Is because this was how I was thinking of exercise. He wanted me to get away from that. to show that this rest and recovery is going to make my next workout even better.
Right.
And eventually that's what started happening. The energy levels went up. I slept better. Everything felt so much better. And all of a sudden my progress in the gym went through the roof. And I started getting it. I get it. I need to let my body recover. So my relationship with exercise started improving dramatically. And I feel like the exercise more thing is where people really, man, you start getting injured, you start getting, you're exhausted because you're never letting your body recover. You're never making any progress in the gym. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm working out 6 days a week. Why can't I increase weight? Why don't I even look like I lift or whatever it is? Well, it's because your body's being run into the ground,
Yeah.
So it's so much, there's so much nuance to that. Yes, we burn calories when we work out, but you could eat those number of calories in a matter of seconds when you're done. If you want to look at it that way, you are chasing your tail. So let's separate those two and let's just focus on the relationship with exercise as something completely different and why we do it. Because man, you're going to love it more too if you start thinking it in that way.
Yeah. You always use a good analogy about driving in the car, right?
Yeah.
And like what nutrition is and what exercise is in terms of like that vehicle to get you to a fat loss goal. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know that was always like a bunch of light bulb moments for people.
Yeah, I like to use this example, of a car. You have if you go in anyone's car, you have a driver and a passenger, and it's always the driver's responsibility to get you where you're going to go, right? The passenger can't drive the car. They're sitting on the other side. So if you think about weight loss has a driver and a passenger too. And nutrition has to be the driver of that weight loss car, which just means that you will not get to your goal, meaning losing weight, if your nutrition is not where it needs to be. Training is the passenger. Training is the guy with maps. I hear paper maps are coming back now. So maybe that will be a little bit more current than before, but it's the guy riding shotgun, that's helping you get there, maybe talking you through stuff or whatever, but it's going to help you, but it's not training's responsibility to get you to your goal. We want it to be.
Right.
We would love for training to be that driver because my God, how much easier is it to change up your training or to do this and that than have to analyze your food and be more aware of food, right? So it really is way simpler if training would do it. But unfortunately, nutrition is the driver. So your focus with weight loss has to be your nutrition, and training's going to help you. When you are building muscle, the roles reverse because honestly, if you're not training at an intensity with an appropriate kind of program, you won't build anything. And so therefore, training becomes the driver of the muscle building car. Nutrition plays a pretty important shotgun kind of role, but it's still, without training, you're not going to build anything, right? So ultimately it comes down to training. And I've also started saying that I feel like there's a passenger in the back now, and that passenger's the smart aleck, the one that tries to get you off course, and that's emotion, right? I feel like emotion is sitting in the back seat telling you to turn left when deep down inside, I should be going straight. Especially in weight loss, I should be going straight. And emotions saying, no, you need to lower your calories. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to turn left. And the second you turn left, you're on this long, windy road, way off course. You're lost. You don't know what to do. And you have to work your way back to that main road. And I feel like that's the passenger we have to be careful of. We have to really throw them in the trunk and lock the key. Basically that's kind of what you got to do. But I think we have to be aware of emotion trying to drive.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, I think. And it goes back to everything that we were just talking about at the beginning, where we're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 years of this being ingrained well, this is everything that I know, everything that I think is right. My entire worldview around dieting and health and what to do in order to lose weight shattered. I have people telling me out of nowhere, like, do I trust them? Are they going to put me down the wrong path? And I should probably just go back to what's safe and what's comfortable because that's what I know. But then it always becomes, the question, it's a hard question that we usually ask of like, girl, if it was going to work for you, wouldn't it have worked by now? You've been doing it for 30 years, you know?
Yeah, wouldn't it have worked? Like it doesn't make logical sense to keep going back to something because it quote worked. You know, that's short-term view, right? Work meaning, yeah, the weight came off, but in a bigger view, you could never maintain it. So
Right.
really, it essentially did not work.
Yeah. No, what about, you know, I know this is something that you thought at one point too, and we, most of, you know, the women that we work with, they're somewhere between, you know, 35 and 70. And something that we hear commonly is women over the age of 40, they're hitting like perimenopause, women in their 50s in menopause. It's my age and it's menopause and it's my hormones, and that's making it impossible. And nothing I can do is going to change any of that because it's my age and because I'm in menopause. You've obviously lived through it. I mean, is age and menopause like a death sentence, or is that something that's just an additional challenge?
Yeah, it's definitely not the death sentence that we want. I think we kind of want it to be, right?
Yeah.
Because I think,
Easier.
Melissa, you had mentioned earlier, it makes us have to look at ourselves a little bit. Now, this is not to minimize symptoms or minimize what is perimenopause and menopause, because let me tell you, it's no fun. It's no fun to go through. And yeah, it makes it super challenging. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And people deal with this period of time differently. Some people get on hormone replacement therapy because their doctor feels like that's a good call for them. Some people do not. Some people just, you know, do other medicinal kind of treatments or what, you know, everyone does their own thing and try to get through it their own way. And I feel like it is much harder to lose weight in menopause. It's really stubborn, but I also find that we think we're being more consistent with our efforts than we actually are. And honestly, that's kind of what it comes down to. And I'll tell you, people push back with me on that. This is the tough love piece. And I feel like it's very common. It's not everyone. So, you know, we all got to get over this. Someone says something and it's for everyone, you know, it's not me. Well, okay, cool. If it's not you, then great.
You're the unicorn, right?
Right. But it's for a lot of people. Most people, we think we're consistent, you know, over these decades. We've become less active. We're not dialing in our nutrition like maybe we did earlier on. Our lives have gotten different. We have kids, we have families, we have jobs, all of these things. We're surviving. We're going through drive-thrus, taking our kids to practice. All of these things that don't seem like much in the weeds, in the day-to-day, right? But when you take a step back and look at this long period of time, it adds up. And then menopause hits, and now we've got this storm brewing, right? So now we've created this storm over decades, and now we are, and Mother Nature's just like kicking our ass a little bit here too, you know, just kind of hit us when we're down. And now we're just blaming Mother Nature. And Mother Nature can take a hit, but really we have to look at what we did and now what can we do to change it, because this is the good news. We can change any of that, right? We have to become more aware, and I always say we have to be honestly aware, because I feel like the word honest has to be in there, because we will listen to the bullshit we tell ourselves in a you know, we all do this. And we've got to get the bullshit meter turned on and really pay attention to it, become more honestly aware, and start to be more consistent with our efforts in trying to lose weight or whatever the goal is. And that will work long-term, whether you're in menopause or not. You know, that's the interesting thing. The instructions on how to do this haven't changed, right? It doesn't change. It's just that when you're older, it's probably going to take longer. You know, okay, so what? It's going to take a little longer. You can do things by exercise that are going to make you feel better while you're doing it. And that's so important, you know, but the instructions are still the same, you know, find your nice, modest calorie deficit that you can sustain, you know, eat the things that you love in moderation, track your consistency, be honest with yourself, patience, you know, all of these things. That hasn't changed, right?
That is so overrated. And I think it's just because we've been taught, you know, from like decades of the same type of advice and information. This should be something that happens quickly. You have to suffer for it. You need to restrict and deprive. And you're kind of we were talking about this last week, almost hating yourself and hating the journey, because you're constantly focused on, I can't eat this and that makes me miserable. And then when I do eat it, I feel guilty. So I'm miserable then. So you're just constantly in this state of misery. You're, busting your ass in the gym 24/7, doing things you don't even enjoy doing that don't make you feel good, because it's all to try to get to this finish line that you've set for, an arbitrary timeline, which you didn't even have to have in the first place. And so I think what you said is just having that patience and relaxing into the journey and understanding. I mean, you're 8 years into your journey, and I'm sure you didn't look back and be like, well, shit, it's taken me 8 years and this has been terrible.
It's so funny with regards to timelines. When I post any kind of progress photo of me, and I don't have a lot of photos of me back before all of this, and so I post the same 5 or whatever, kind of then and more now. People say, well, what is the time period between the two? And I honestly don't know. The only way I know is because a lot of them are when I ran this Disney race, and I can look that up on what year it was that I did that. That's the only reason I know. And then the other side is a more recent picture. And that got me out of the timeline thing, right? Like, I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I think people get caught up in that a lot. The whole, we grew up with the 2 pounds a week kind of being the level playing field here. And so people think anything less than that is not making progress,
Well,
and the lack of understanding the scale fluctuations. We were never taught that.
No.
I
think it's that. And it's also like, when you think about it, there's almost always something to be dieting for, or like, I have an event coming up, or I have a vacation coming up, like whatever it is, you always hear of, like, there is a timeline on it. And it's crazy what happens when you remove that timeline and you're like, you have like 40, 50 more years of life to live. Like, do you really want to be living the rest of your life on these short timelines of just being miserable? And when you remove that, you're able, like you said, just to be able to relax into it and just start living your life. And I think that's where all the freedom really comes from.
100%. And that particular thing is, and I say this frequently, this is the one thing that changed my life. I truly believe that is getting rid of the burden that's sitting on your shoulders of timelines, expectations, those kinds of things that we do to ourselves. If you can get rid of that, get it off your shoulders, literally that burden that's sitting on your shoulders, get that off there. All of a sudden, the liberation is unbelievable. And from someone who felt it, who did it, it literally will change your life and how you approach things. It gives me goosebumps because it is that big of a deal.
Yeah. I do want to kind of dive into that a little bit more because, obviously you've had a very impressive physical transformation. Your before and after it's so inspirational for so many women at your age, right? But I want to understand, like, what else has changed or improved in your life over the last 8 years since you started this journey, and like what came from that physical transformation?
So many things. The timeline and expectation thing was the biggie, like finally accepting that I didn't have to lose weight. I didn't have to do it by a certain time or whatever. And for me, another thing was learning to love what I was doing. Like, I found a way to exercise that I truly love. And giving myself goals within that exercise way of life, like being able to do a chin up was a goal for my whole life, really. Got it when I was in my 50s. It took a little while, but I got it, and that progressed to, okay, put 45 pounds on my waist and now do it, which is what I'm working back to. I did it, and now I'm working back towards it now. Being able to row 100-pound dumbbell, that's a goal I'm giving myself. It's that kind of stuff that I started looking at the gym and going, you know what? I would love to be able to, that kind of thing. That, to be honest, is what has kept me going, keeps me going to this day. It's not so much about, I want to build this much muscle, or I want to lose this much weight, or I don't even care really that much how I look anymore. It's not about that. I did have aesthetic goals, and I know people get bashed for that. I just wanted to feel better inside on how I looked outside. I had this conflict, you know.
Yeah.
People say, love who you are, you know, and whenever I post that couple of these photos, they say, well, I think you look great on the left. And thank you. But I felt miserable on the inside. You can't see that through the fake smile, right?
Yeah.
So it's more involved than just the physical. But I think it can work together, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now it's more along the lines of, I am doing this because my life continuum is much shorter, and I don't want to spend what time I have left, you know, worrying about looking a certain way or whatever. I mean, it's not about that. It's about building strength, building muscle, and continuing to do that. So I have a functional quality of life, you know, the whole longevity thing, but quality, not just quantity. Right. And, you know, we were talking off air about my hip, and, you know, there's a bunch of things coming up, you know, to play with that. You know, do I do a replacement earlier rather than later? Pros and cons. I'm trying to research and learn more and find out what's good for me, you know, but it's all about that now.
Yeah.
You know, but what comes with that is, the physique piece comes with that. Right.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not taking steroids. No, I don't do anything like that. I get accused of that more often than I can tell you, you know, which is funny because anybody that knows me knows I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't even know, like, what are the names? Where would you get them?
Where do you even buy a steroid?
I have no idea.
I don't know. And people say, you know, genetics. Well, you know, in my pretty immediate family, you know, going through cousins and second cousins, I don't see it. I don't see it. But I just work hard at it. I work hard at it because it's a priority. And I feel like when I took it to, okay, I have these little mini goals now, these little, you know, for whatever reason goals that I want to achieve, it keeps me going. It keeps me driving. And that changed my life too. You know, that and getting rid of timelines.
Yep.
I mean, I that's my favorite thing, is watching people's goals evolve. And it goes from, my goal is to lose weight and like have like all the aesthetic things, which is fine. Right. And like, you should, that's okay to want that, because that's how you look and that's how you feel comfortable. Yeah. But you know, the mindset shift going from, I need to lose weight, I want to be skinnier, I want to be thinner, to I want to be stronger. I want to be able to lift more in the gym. I want to feel better inside. Like, that is everything. And I think you just don't understand that until you start going through it and you start to, like you said, remove the timeline, remove all this pressure that you're essentially putting on yourself. Like, you are putting the pressure on yourself. When you remove that, you just start living your life and your goals just evolve. And that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for this episode to be out, for our women to hear this. I think it's such an important message that, you know, it's never too late to start. And even at, you know, your mid 50s, you can literally change your life. And it's not, you don't have to blame hormones. You don't have to blame your, you know, menopause. You don't have to blame genetics. Like, you can take control of your life at any age. So I think this is a beautiful message, and we really appreciate you being on and sharing your story with our audience. I know that you have your book out. Where can people find that? Where can people find you if they want to hear more about you?
So my book is on Amazon. It's called Fit at Any Age. It's Never Too Late. I'm on Instagram, Susan Niebergall Fitness, Facebook. I have a YouTube channel. Check that out, because there are a lot of videos. I think I mentioned earlier, educational, kind of geared towards middle-aged women. And then I coach the Inner Circle with Jordan Syatt, and we are at sfinnercircle.com.
That wraps it for this video, and let us know in the comments below if you enjoy these longer videos where we bring on guest experts from our podcast and share it with you on video. And also, let us know, what was your biggest takeaway from this video? We'll see you next time.